Welcome back to Who Are You, a CSI podcast. I am Lauren, and I have seen CSI through and through around 3 to 4 times.
And I'm Nick, and this is my first time experiencing these episodes.
And today we are reviewing Season 1, Episode 12, Fahrenheit 932. Director is Danny Cannon. Writers are Anthony E. Zeiker, Jacqueline Zambrono, and Eli Talbert. Original air date is February 1st, 2001. So, I'm going to be curious to hear your Vegas score on this one, because my notes say that the intro is basically just cuts of a highway to a jail.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I gave a 0.
Okay, that's
There's
fair.
like 1.5 second clip of a casino at some point later on in the episode, and I was just like, nope.
Yeah, I think in one of the cutaway scenes, there's like a flash to a casino and then segue into the next scene.
Yeah, I don't know if Vegas scores or if this is a sign of the future or just this episode, but yeah, just a lot of Vegas desert road or something, right? Yeah.
Yep. So we then go to prisoners in an exercise yard, and then we see a very specific prisoner writing a package to Grissom. We then see this man drop the package off. The package then travels to what we presume is like CSI HQ. We see it being scanned. Through the scan, we see that it's a VHS tape. And then we see it delivered to Grissom. And I had to make a note of this. We have been talking a lot about how Jim Brass has evolved as a character, and he was really stern the first few episodes, and now he's a little bit more getting along with his coworkers. And I don't like the Jim Brass who, when referring to a VHS tape, says, I hope it's the next episode of G-String Divas.
Yeah, which I don't really remember.
Work appropriate, my friend. Not work appropriate.
I don't really remember that show. Was it on the same network, maybe?
No.
But it sounds like E-network style television.
See, I assumed it was what were those softcore videos? Girls Gone Wild.
Red Shoe Diaries?
No, Girls Gone Wild.
I worked at a Blockbuster, and Red Shoe Diaries were the
I worked at a
non-Blockbuster
at a DVD store, so we definitely had some. Yeah. We couldn't carry the full adult suite of products, but we could carry the just on the edge suite of products.
Good news, there is a Wikipedia page for G-String Divas.
Okay.
It's a documentary series that aired on HBO. It follows the lives of strippers working in Bristol, Pennsylvania.
Okay. All right. So it was a real thing. I just thought it was something that they made up for the show. So here you go. It's a real thing.
I recognized the name, but had no remembrance of what it was. And I was like, is that a real thing? Or am I just or does it just sound like a real thing?
Yeah, I thought he made it up. I thought it was similar to Girls Gone Wild was my guess. So, but it's still not work appropriate.
There's only 2 paragraphs to this Wikipedia page, and the second one details references to a homicide. It doesn't have to do with this episode, but it'd be interesting if the writers are really into G-string homicides. If a later episode is based on this story from G-String Divas, maybe it'll come back.
Okay, all right.
But I do agree that it's like a sleazy.
It's very sleazy. I didn't like it. I didn't. I was like, Jim Brass, don't be like this. It was very uncomfortable.
Out of work, that's a pretty edgy comment to make.
Yes, but especially at work.
In the office? Not even just out in the field or at a bar with coworkers. You were sitting in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, not appropriate. So, again, as a manager of people in a corporate environment, not appropriate. So, Grissom ends up watching the VHS. It is from a one Frank Damon who says that he has been accused of murdering his wife and son, but he claims that he didn't kill his family, and that Grissom is his last hope of proving that he did not start the fire that killed his wife and son. We then go to credits. So our credits came at a normal time this episode. Our last episode, it took a while for us to get to credits. Today, I feel like this is a normal length of time for us to get to credits. We go to credits. We then go to Grissom in the, I call it the lounge area of HQ. The team walks in. We learn that they're supposed to be filling out supervisor evaluation forms on him.
Which don't come up again, right?
No.
I literally got to the end of the episode and I went, whatever happened to this?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We did not tie off that storyline.
Maybe next episode.
Maybe next episode.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. So there is a crime scene with a body in a car at the Monaco. That goes to Nick and Catherine, even though Warwick wants the case. But because there's an undercurrent of gambling possibly being involved, Grissom is very quick to be like, yeah, no, you're not allowed on this case. And so he tells Sarah and Warwick that they're working with him on investigating, Frank Damon's claims that he's innocent and, revisiting this arson case. We learn that Mr. Damon's case restarts in 3 days and that Eckley, our arch nemesis, was the original CSI on the case. So Grissom is brewing some tea by being willing to reinvestigate a case that Eckley closed. So before we continue with the Monaco storyline, we see Jim Brass approaching Grissom in his car out in the parking lot. Jim Brass lets him know that he did some checking on Mr. Damon and that whole crime scene, and that the wife was overspending. They were behind on their house payments because the wife was spending so much money, that they detected gasoline in the bedroom, and that Mr. Damon had purchased gasoline a week before the fire. So Jim Brass is trying to convince Grissom that there's no point in investigating this. This guy is obviously guilty. Just let sleeping dogs lie, basically. Yeah. We then go to Catherine and Nick arriving at their crime scene. So they're at a parking garage. Nick very quickly assesses that the victim has died due to a gunshot wound to the head at point blank range. And this kind of sets up for later scenes, but Catherine points out that the victim is quote unquote just a baby, as in a teenager. Not just a baby as in 3, but as in definitely not an adult. So we see an initial reenactment where the killer was waiting for the victim in the car. So the killer gets in the car, killer's waiting in the backseat, blows him away. It's
the most iconic way in which someone dies.
Yes.
In any form of media.
Yes.
And I've never heard of it happening in real life. Somebody's waiting for you in the backseat, pops up, shoots in the head.
Agreed. I will also say I am... And please don't try to find the address of my house, listeners. But I'm not the best about locking. I am at night. I'm not the best about locking my house during the day because I live in a very safe neighborhood. And previously I lived in a very safe neighborhood. And this bothered people that I lived with, where they were like, why aren't the doors locked? And I'm like, it's noon on a Tuesday. I don't know. I'm very good about keeping my car door locked, though. I never, I get out of my car and I beep beep as soon as I get out of my car. So, no one's getting into my car when I'm not there.
If I'm out and about, even the grocery store or something, my car is always locked.
But even in my own driveway, even though I feel safe leaving my house unlocked, I still lock my car.
I probably would. I have a garage. And so I tend to leave my car.
And an ad for a plumbing company using your house.
Yes. Which has been true for a while, but it never ceases to amaze me. And my dad was researching getting a electric car charger.
Oh,
the same company does electricity, so
okay. Yeah.
I was like,
they better give you a discount.
I sent him the website, and then he's like, "Oh, that's our house."
Yeah. Discount City.
They did our hot water heater in the basement, and the owner's son or whatever was here, and I think he took the photo during that project. I guess, from the street, it's all just a public photo. That's just like Google Street View.
Yeah, but I still feel use that to your advantage and see if you can get a discount because your house is featured in their photo. It might not lead anywhere, but I feel like it's worth a go.
Hasn't worked yet. I've mentioned it to every single person. They just installed a stove for us. It was $600.
Okay.
It was overwhelmingly expensive. But what was I saying about the episode? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. So this is a very common way
of showing a death, but you've never known this to actually be somebody's cause of death.
I was gonna say. So while I almost always lock my car while I'm out at a grocery store, I will almost never lock my car when it's parked in my garage. But also, I don't think my house has been locked in 8 years.
Okay, see, good. That makes me feel better because I had a ex. I mean, they weren't an ex at the time. It was my partner at the time. They used to get so angry at me that I'd like during the day have my house unlocked, and I was like, it's the middle of the day and I'm home and I might have to like go out and get the mail or take the dogs for a walk or run out to my car to grab something. I was like, why am I going to keep my house locked at like 1 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon? And they like legitimately used to get angry at me for it. And I was like, oh, like I lock it at night. Like when I'm going to bed, I lock my doors.
Yeah. Even we don't do that, although we used to do it more, but like again, our neighborhood's also very quiet and rural, and there's police officers who live on our street. It's not a kind of neighborhood you want to be casing. But I can't tell you the last time there wasn't a human being in this house. We have 6 adults live in this house. Everyone has a different schedule. Even when we go on vacation, there's people home. Yeah. And so...
you're never all out of the house at the same time.
I've barely been alone in the house in the last 5 years.
Nick and I had a very different experience during COVID. Wherein I lived by myself during COVID, and he was never alone during COVID.
We played a lot of board games. Watched a lot of movies. Got Mulan directed Disney Plus.
Yeah,
that was like the must see event of the year.
It was a big deal. I still haven't seen it actually.
Tiger King.
Yep. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I totally watched Tiger King and joked with my friends in the reptile world that like if they did a reptile version of that, it would be so much worse. It could be so much worse.
If CSI, I was gonna say if CSI was around today, but there probably is a spinoff or was a spinoff still going at the time. But the Carol Baskin's missing husband would be a great CSI episode.
So there is a CSI Las Vegas that is current, which is a like reboot-ish of the one that we're watching now. There has not been a Carol Baskin storyline, but you never know. Like maybe that'll happen. But back to On Topic. They notice what they think is a hearing aid in the victim's ear, and then they also take note of condensation on the back window. Catherine also finds a giant wad of cash in the car, and there's a ticket on it that says, well, she says Giants -9. Or no, she says Giants... How does she... I'm trying to think of like the gambling way to say it. She says Giants... something 9, and Nick is like, oh, you mean Giants -9.
Yeah, I think you would say -9.
Yeah, so she says it in some other way, and then
subtract 9 or
I think she said subtract. I think she said like Giants subtract 9, and Nick is like, oh no, that means Giants -9. It's a bet, and so they realize that the bet was placed with teller number 12, so that leads us to Catherine and Nick talking to teller number 12, where we learn that the victim was 517. He doesn't know the victim's name. Yep. He just knows him by his number. He was a runner, so he was running bets.
I thought I knew this teller. He looked familiar.
Okay.
I thought I was going to have a spot the guest star.
Ooh, okay.
The whole episode, I was
you were like,
I can't place him. And then at the end of the episode, I looked it up and I don't know him for anything.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, he's been in a lot of other random things, but maybe he was in just like one famous scene in a thing that I've seen.
Yeah, and it's like sticking out in your brain.
And I just don't, when I see it, I don't recognize it. Yep. But it's also really confusing because apparently he's mostly a writer and not an actor anymore.
Oh, okay.
And his IMDb, it took me a while to figure out how to find his acting credits because they're like...
Yeah, because it was... Yeah. Okay. So we then go to Grissom arriving at the jail. He is confronted with an inmate who lets him know that the reason that he's in jail is because of Grissom. And then he sits down and talks to Mr. Damon.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have to call this out.
Okay,
because I'm obsessed with CSI's obsession with... shoe print.
You are, yes. And he said, he got him on a shoe print.
And he said, next time I'm going to go barefoot. And Grissom's like, oh yeah, footprints.
Even better, footprint.
Even better. And I thought, have we had? I couldn't remember it.
No, we have not had a footprint yet.
We've not had a footprint yet?
No. We've had quite a few shoe prints. We have not had a footprint yet.
We've had an ear print.
We've had an ear print. Yep.
That's true. So footprint. I'm primed for a footprint now. But I just thought it was hilarious that they used. Oh, you got me. Next time I will wear shoes, and I went. And he goes, oh, footprint even better. I'm so glad that they found a way to work in shoe prints in this episode.
Yep, they do love their shoe prints.
It made me so happy, so I had to call it up.
No, I appreciate it. And so he sits down and he talks to Mr. Damon. Grissom learns a few things by staring at him, that he reads a lot, that he's well educated, that he works a white collar job. We also in this interaction see him like hide his hand away from Grissom. Grissom then asks him fairly what happened. And so Mr. Damon said that he left to get ice cream, that he came back in 20 minutes, he saw the smoke, he ran upstairs, he checked the door for heat, he was worried about a flashover, so he did not open the door. This is critical for a storyline later on. And he explains that he knew what a flashover is because he's a volunteer firefighter. So, well, he said firemen, and I was like, you sexist CSI firefighter. Like, how hard is it to just say firefighter? He's a volunteer fire... The volunteer firemen, and so he went outside and he called a rig. He also tells Grissom that he doesn't know how the gas got in the bedroom, that he did in fact buy gas, but he bought gas for the lawnmower. It was kept in the garage outside. He, at some point in talking to Grissom, puts his hand up on the glass or the plastic that separates them, and so you can very obviously see like a wound / scar on his hand. Grissom asks, how did you get that burn on your hand? And Mr. Damon replies that he doesn't remember, which Grissom fairly is like, if you got third-degree burns, you would remember how you got third-degree burns. Yeah. And I think that's true. I think you'd probably remember. Like, I have been mildly burned, and I remember it. So.
Yeah, I remember anything close to a second-degree burn I've ever received.
Yes, yeah.
I will say that I was surprised that Grissom was, like, in this scene, wasn't already calling this guy out.
Yes, he seems to be letting a lot go.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there's a couple more, I think, exchanges in this scene, but I did write down that the guy clearly burned his hand from opening the door. But I also wrote, there's no way this guy went out to get ice cream.
Yeah, I'm glad that was
I didn't know what it was going to be, but I was like, okay.
But you were like, he didn't get the ice cream.
He clearly left for some other reason. And I think I had the appropriate thought in the back of my mind, but I actually moved away from it and later on. But I have like one more prediction that doesn't really come into play for this until later, but that turned out to be incorrect. And then I made an additional prediction, which also ended up being incorrect, all kind of related to the gasoline part of the story. So,
So, as Nick pointed out, Grissom seems to not be pushing back on him too much, and so he agrees to take the case. So we then move to Grissom, Warwick, and Sarah arriving at the arson scene. They give us a kind of quick rundown that what the fire doesn't destroy, firefighters do. And not obviously, this is not a slight against firefighters. I have known firefighters. They're just doing their job.
Scene.
At the crime scene.
The evidence,
They're ruining the evidence because they're trying to secure the residents and trying to prevent a spread of fire. So it doesn't help the crime scene, but it helps obviously keep other people safe. So this is not a slight against firefighters by any stretch of the imagination.
To be fair, they say what the fire doesn't destroy, and the fire would destroy all the evidence if the firefighters were involved.
Yeah. And they walk to the son's room. Sarah notes that it looks like he's going to go camping. They find waterproof matches. They then move on to the master bedroom or the parents' bedroom. They note that the outside door frame is charred, and they seem very confused by this. They also notice, quote-unquote, rubber on the door handle, which we learn pretty soon afterwards what that actually is. We also learn that the point of origin for the fire was the closet, and inside of that closet there are shards of glass that have melted into the concrete of the floor.
They also had a scene, didn't they go through the bedroom of the son?
Yes, I said they go to the kid's bedroom. They realize he's going to go camping. They find the waterproof matches.
So my prediction at this point was that I was thinking like, oh, mom and dad, they had a fight, or dad was out late or something, and the kid was playing like fort camping in the bedroom. And the glass was going to be related to a camping lantern.
Okay. Yeah. Like a carry lantern. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that could, be whatever, the kid doesn't know. Maybe they were planning to go on a camping trip, and so he had supplies. He brought them in the house. And I thought like, oh, maybe the gas or something, like white gas, or I don't know. But something was going to be for the lantern, which also didn't turn out to be true. But
yeah. We also realized that there is no trailing, meaning that the accelerant wasn't like poured all over the room and then lit ablaze. That it was, very concentrated in one tiny area, but there wasn't trailing, which is what you would normally find in an arson case. We then pop over to our other storyline, and we see Catherine with a mom at the coroner. We learned that this is Mrs. Hillman. She does ID her son, and I want to give this actress credit that I thought she did a very good job of doing the, silent crying, yep, that's my son, shake, head nod. Catherine and the mom then end up talking in the hallway. We learned that Joey, the victim's hearing, was fine. We also learned that the mom, Mrs. Hillman, has an older son named Danny who roped Joey into basically the lifestyle of running and not the good, go out and get 3K in. The running bets lifestyle.
When the 5K you get.
Yeah, not the 5K.
Is cash, 5K cash.
Yeah, 5K cash.
5 kilometers.
Yeah, a little bit different. And the mother lets us know that they wear remote earpieces, and that's how they talk to their boss. So it wasn't a hearing aid that he was wearing, it was a remote earpiece.
I didn't write it down. I wasn't very confident in it, but I did at this point think, did the kid kill his own brother?
Okay.
Because I think, I don't know if it had come up yet, but they were talked about routes later on, and
yes, I don't think it's come out
maybe,
yet.
Maybe his brother, and I think that's when I thought it, and I was like, no, I think that they would have done the scene differently if they were going to go in that direction. But yeah, for a short minute, I thought that the older brother was going to be the killer.
Okay, that's fair. We then go to Grissom, Sarah, and Warwick coming back to HQ. They're bringing in evidence from the arson case. Grissom ends up talking to Eckley. Grissom is posing the question of hey, why is there no trailing in this crime scene if you think it's an arson? And Grissom is sort of trying to diffuse the situation and telling Eckley that they're just a couple of science geeks. Why are we getting all up in arms about this? We're just a couple of science geeks. And Eckley obviously does not take this well. We then go to Catherine and Nick talking to Warwick about runners because they're clueless. They have no idea what is going on with this case whatsoever. Yep. So they have to go to the resident gambler, aka Warwick, to find out what's going on. And Warwick tells them that these runners all work for the same guy. When he was a runner, back in college, his boss was called, quote unquote, the Voice. And he doesn't think that the Voice or whoever the boss is now is who they should be targeting, that they really should be looking at other runners. So he's telling them, hey, go and talk to other runners, and that's how you're going to get your information.
Yeah, I think this is when I thought, oh, did the older brother kill because he's not around? And, maybe he got his younger brother, and his younger brother somehow ended up with a better route and wouldn't switch with him or something. And then I was like, no, probably not.
Yeah, no, I'm going to vote now.
And although I will say this episode got me. I did not see this coming. And I didn't get to watch this. I didn't get to do a second watch on this one.
Oh,
but okay. I wanted to see if the killer sneezed
earlier,
or coughed in an earlier scene.
I think he sniffled in an earlier scene, but I don't think that he officially sneezed or.
But
no, I don't think he did.
I might go back and check that. It was the one thing I wanted to double check.
Yeah, double check. Okay. So we see Sarah walking into Grissom in the middle of an experiment. Warwick quickly joins her. He proves the flashover happened. They realize that the outside of the door had alligatoring, which suggests that Damon lied and he did in fact open the door. So
Damon lies an awful, for a guy
he lies a lot.
Who really wants to clear himself.
A lot.
And you reach out to this dude, and he's your last hope, and you just lie to him.
You just keep lying to him.
And then when he I think are we about to get to the scene when you confront him? Then he still lies
he confronts him on one of the lies here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's you're still lying, and you're still not telling the truth. It's dude, no wonder your lawyer doesn't want to back the case.
Get anybody else involved.
You're not telling your lawyer the truth either.
Right. So we then see Grissom arriving at the prison. We see Damon with a woman on the bench. We learn that the woman is his quote-unquote sister. At this point in time, this is his sister.
I put sister in quotes literally.
Yeah, at this point.
And then I thought I was wrong because they don't really bring it up again for a long time.
No, not until like the very end, really. Well, she's a little weird. She's a little weird about it. Yeah, in the last few scenes, she's a little weird about it. And this is when, and I wonder how Grissom got this past jail security. And I say this as someone who has a relative that worked as a prison guard at some point, that he was able to bring a doorknob into a jail. Like, you were able to bring what could very easily be turned into a weapon into a jail.
On the visitor's side, you can't pass through the glass.
Yeah, but even still...
You're probably 100% right. You probably would not be
It does not seem right. So...
Although, maybe if you're a CSI supervisor, you go through
maybe you can do it. So
side entrance.
He asked Mr. Damon to open up his hand, the one that has the burn pattern on it, and he places the doorknob in his palm and says, "This is like the same type of doorknob that was in your house."
Right, they aren't separated by glass in this scene.
No, they're like sitting next to each other in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
They're like in an open room together in this scene.
Oh yeah. Because they were in the glass in the first scene with the phone. That's why I was thinking like that would have less security.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, you're right.
This is like they're in a room
He's
together.
definitely in the he could definitely pass anything he wanted to a prisoner here. He would never be allowed in without.
He would never be allowed in with it. And so this is when Mr. Damon admits that he didn't want anyone to know that he opened the door because he is a volunteer firefighter, but in the heat of the moment, and I did not mean that as a pun, he forgot everything. And so now we see a new reenactment where he does open the door and we see this flashover. We see this like flash of heat, and Mr. Damon says that he quote unquote let the monster out. He then closed the door so that the entire house wouldn't go up and the firefighters could like actually reach his family and the whole house wouldn't be destroyed. He tries to say that he did kill his family, but not in the sense of like, I started the fire, killed the family, but I killed my family because I opened the door and I caused the flashover to happen. And Grissom is trying to reassure him that, like, hey, don't worry, carbon monoxide totally killed them before that happened.
Or just, like, general heavy smoke insulation, lack of oxygen.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
The reason the fire wasn't on fire was because there was enough oxygen. Your family would, at the very least, have just been passed out from hypoxia.
Yeah.
So.
Just a lack of oxygen, for sure. We then head back to Nick and Catherine. They're back with the teller. He ends up pointing out another runner, a 702. Nick and Catherine talk to him at the bar for a little while. We then go to Warwick at the arson scene, and Grissom, like, sneaks up behind him and startles Warwick. They end up finding a heater in the kind of like heap of stuff that the firefighters had moved, and they quickly determined that could have overloaded the house electricity.
At this point, I was convinced, okay, wasn't a camping stove, space heater has oil in it, space heater could have crystal rods or glass or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially like 2000 space heaters, or
2000.
This guy could have had this since like the 90s. Like, you know, probably because space heaters are a big cause of fires. I was like, oh, okay, the space heater caused the fire. Like, it was the oil. They're going to realize that, like, it's the oil from the space heater that was the accelerant and had nothing to do with the gas. But, yeah, no, that was also incorrect.
yes, it does end up being incorrect. But good, but good thought process.
It also made me wonder at this point, did they not check the garage for gasoline?
They never,
for the 1 gallon of gasoline
there's never
that
follow
he
up.
bought.
Yeah, there's never follow up on that front. You would think like it's not that hard to just see, and not saying that would absolve him, but at least it would like add credibility to his story if like he didn't find like, you know, a gallon container in his garage,
or like you could probably tell if like his lawnmower burned down.
Right.
Like if it was in the garage and it caught on fire, that gas would have burned and left the same traces, like heavy amounts of accelerant behind. But yeah, they never really get to that.
No, they don't. No.
They don't do anything to prove his story. They just sort of look for new evidence.
Yes.
Whole episode, yeah.
Yes. Yep. So they check the breaker box for the bedroom. They then take out the outlet from the bedroom. Mm-hmm. We then pop on over to Catherine with a nondescript lab tech. She's asking about DNA and mucus. Totally, we can get DNA out of mucus. He's going to go ahead and start a profile. David then walks up and tells Catherine that someone is waiting for her in reception. So Catherine walks out to find the mom, Mrs. Hillman, there with her son, Danny. And then we move to interrogation. And this is where Danny admits that he lost $30K of his boss's money. So he took money that was, he was a runner. He took money that was like designed for bets and used it to bet himself. And he lost it. And he didn't think to tell his brother that anyone would maybe go after him for retribution.
This is why he's been missing.
This is why he has been missing. Yes, is because he thinks that there are people after him because he lost $30K of his boss's money. He thinks
to next week, he's dead, and we have to solve that murder too.
So he thinks another runner killed his brother, and Nick asks for his mom doesn't want him to give up any exact names because she doesn't want to lose another son, so she doesn't want him to give exact names as to who he think might have killed his brother. So Nick kind of gives him a pass and lets him know, hey, just give us the frequency that you operate on for your earbuds. And so they get the frequency that they're operating on. We then see Grissom in the lab. Eckley shows up, and Grissom is trying to say that the cause of the fire was faulty wiring. Eckley is saying that it's a waste of time to, follow this train of thought. Grissom then points out that the wire burned from the inside out, meaning that the fire started from the wall. And Eckley brings up the ever-present question of, then why is there accelerant in the closet, right? If this was just an outlet overcharging or overheating, why is there accelerant in the closet? We then go to Grissom back with Damon. He doesn't know why there's accelerant in the closet. This ever-burning question, he doesn't know. He has no idea. He basically tells Grissom that he must be, I guess I'm a dead man. He can't explain why there's accelerant in the closet. So, because he can't answer that, obviously, that must be the end for him.
This guy would make a pretty bad firefighter, by the way.
I agree.
He can't remember something that happened not that long ago that was traumatic to him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have a comprehension of what would or would not count as an accelerant.
Also true. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of glad he didn't make it. I'm glad that his volunteer firefighter position did not go to a full-time firefighter position.
It's not really clear at the end of the episode. Is he a free man?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess. So, he could still apply to be a firefighter.
Yeah, he could.
I don't know if he'd get hired.
It might not look good that your wife and son died in a fire when you're trying to apply to be a firefighter.
That's why he'd be like, that's why I want to become a firefighter.
Yeah. I still think that's not great. So we move on to our other storyline, and we see the sergeant with a group of runners. They are there, quote unquote, voluntarily. They swab their noses to obviously try to match them to the mucus traces that they got. I put a note here that I thought it was hilarious that they used their runner numbers on the vials instead of their actual names. What are we doing here, CSI? What are we doing here?
It's even better. It's not the runner number.
I thought it was their runner number.
It's their casino ID number for that one casino that they've been interacting with. That's why the guy knows them as that number. That's the...
Yeah, but that's their runner. He said that that's their runner number. That's how he knows them, is by their runner numbers.
Oh. Because there's not 100 runners. There's just a dozen of them.
Yeah, no, I know that, but I think that's their numbers.
I thought it was their bidder number, their whatever, their the way the casino identifies them.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I'll have to double check. Maybe I'll watch the episodes a good time anyways. I have 2 unanswered questions.
Here we go.
And make a good tweet.
Yes.
Sorry, a good X post.
Whatever, call it a tweet. I don't care. I still go to Twitter when I go to log in
Twitter.com
to update our Twitter. So they find no match. So none of the runners match the mucus, and he's very upset about this.
Nick had bet $100.
Yes, with one of the runners that it was one of the runners, and Nick bet incorrectly because it was none of these runners.
So now he owes this guy $100, but has no cash on him.
Got no cash.
So he's going to have to track him down later.
Which comes into play. We then go to Grissom counting the matches. Sarah walks in. Grissom is letting her know that all the matches found in the son's bedroom are there, so he doesn't think that the son is the one that started the fire. Sarah has a theory, though, that hydrocarbons are found in all sorts of things, so it doesn't necessarily have to be gasoline as the accelerant. It could be any number of things that hydrocarbons are found in. Not that, though.
I still thought I was right at this point.
Not that, though. And then Grissom, Warwick, and Sarah head back to the house where they learn that it is being cleaned by the crime scene cleanup. We head back to HQ. We go to Grissom confronting Eckley. Eckley tries to play it off, saying that the house cleanup has been on the book for months. If Grissom had checked it, he would have known this. Grissom knocks the coffee pot out of his hand, and it shatters on the ground. And there's a very dramatic scene where Grissom stares at the shattered glass, and then we flash back to the crime scene, shattered glass.
All I could think is this is where he realizes if the space heater got kicked over and then shorted.
Nick is really holding on to this theory. He's really holding on to it.
I really still thought I was right. I mean, they came up with this other thing, and I was like, wait, where did this come from? I do want to say one other thing, which is that I thought the idea, not only that Grissom didn't know this cleanup was going to happen, but it's also a failing of both Sarah and Warwick, who are also working this case. Either one of them could have been looking at the notes and seeing that this was scheduled.
Yes. Yeah, there was multiple points where they failed in learning this. So we go to Grissom talking to the quote-unquote sister in the jail. Grissom asks her how Mr. Damon was as a father and a husband, and her response was that Frank was a wonderful father, but very purposely leaves out anything to do with him as a husband. Doesn't mention anything in his husbandly duties, just that he was a great father. We then go to Grissom talking to Mr. Damon. He is telling Mr. Damon about the incident with Eckley and the coffee pot. This is where Mr. Damon admits to another lie and says that he didn't leave to buy ice cream. He was actually leaving his wife, and this caused his wife to throw a bunch of items at him. So this is where Grissom is like, okay, cool. What did she throw at you? This could be really important for the case. Can you tell me what she threw at you? So he says a few things, and then he says a vase. And I had to note that Grissom asked some leading questions here. This is another Grissom, You're leading the witness. Stop leading the witness questions. He's like, are you sure it was a vase? Could have been something similar to a vase. You're leading the witness, Grissom. Stop leading the witness. So Mr. Damon ends up finally admitting that it was a glass lamp, a kerosene lamp that his wife had thrown at him. And so the space heater had overheated, generating sparks, which then lit the kerosene from the lamp, and that's what caused the fire.
All I can think is, who has a kerosene lamp in their house?
I have no idea.
I'm sure that's a thing.
I'm sure it is a thing, but I have some old stuff in my house. That is not one of the things I have in my house. I have some old lamps in my house because my mom's an antique dealer. So some of the stuff in my house is old, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. Give me that old stuff, but
I bet it wouldn't be filled with kerosene.
It would not be filled with kerosene. No, it would
probably
be emptied out at that point.
Across the room, you would clean it up.
Yeah. You wouldn't just let it soak into your carpet.
That was the most. That was the one part of the episode. Maybe it's because I was so heavy on this space heater plot line, but I was kind of like, really? And then the guy doesn't even think of it.
It doesn't stick enough in his memory to stand out as an important moment in this interaction.
He's had a lot of downtime,
Yeah, he's had a lot of time to think about this. You should have a better remembrance. If I was innocent and I was trying to remember anything I could remember that might help my case, you would think that he would have already remembered that, just in a sense of...
I also suspect, immediately following the fire, let's say by the next morning, he was talking to somebody. Sir, can you tell me what happened prior to the fire?
Right.
But
he was lying, right? He already crafted his lies at that point.
Even if you didn't want to tell them that you had a fight with your wife and she threw a lamp at you, you would think about it at that point and be like, oh crap.
Yeah, my wife threw a lamp at me.
Was that her weird kerosene lamp that she threw at me? Oh my lord, that probably made the fire even worse. Oh, I
Crazy.
should tell
That might
about
have that might have contributed to the problem that we had at hand here.
Yeah, I worry about how I actually am not entirely sure a jury would necessarily eat up this additional take.
Yeah.
Like, I think a prosecutor could
I
probably
think
still charge this guy.
I think there has to be a lot of suspension of disbelief in this case, wherein this guy has lied several times. Like, Grissom has caught him in a lie several times, and we're led to believe that despite catching him in a lie several times, we are now to believe him.
Yeah.
Even though we have caught him in a lie more than once.
Yeah, and I think that, like, Grissom could be called to testify in court that this story isn't reliable because...
Right, because he lied multiple times.
Did he not lie to you and change his story multiple times?
Right.
Yeah,
he did. He totally did.
But then I went on a roller coaster and I felt better about it.
Exactly. That's all you need in life. I wish I had roller coasters closer to me so that when I was having a bad day, I could just hop on a roller coaster and feel better.
You could. You just gotta move to Canopy Lake or Six Flags.
I'm not moving to New Hampshire. No, please. So we move away from the storyline for a bit. We head to Nick. He's back talking to the teller. He's trying to drop off cash for the runner for the bet. Like, he's trying to owe up his part of this bet, and he's trying to leave cash for the runner that he owes the $100 to. He notices that the teller has a fancy watch, and before Nick can, like, fully walk away, the teller sneezes. And this is it. This is all Nick needs to know that he is the killer.
I also love that he sneezes on, like, a glass pane.
Yes, on a glass pane, which is similar to, like, sneezing on the window of the back seat of the car.
I do not think that was an accident. He just sneezed into his sleeve, but, like, it just also shows that he doesn't cover up when he sneezes.
Yeah, he doesn't cover up when he sneezes. Cover up when you sneeze, guys. If COVID has taught us anything, sneeze into your elbows, my friends.
Yeah, that guy could have got someone killed with his COVID if he had
Seriously, he could have infected somebody. And so we see the true reenactment in which the teller kills Joey, and we learn that the motive behind the murder was that he wanted Joey's old route. Because he kept saying, like, oh, I'm leaving this job, I have a new job, like, I'm leaving this job in a week, I'm going to a new job. Right. His new job, that it was that he was taking over Joey's route, and so that's why he killed him.
Rarely do I want to give credit to a murderer, but kudos for giving, like, a 2-week notice when you're going to leave your $12 an hour teller job.
Yeah, for a $2,000 a week job?
For a $2,000 a week job.
Yeah.
And not just starting that right away and not being there when Nick showed up.
Yep.
You would have got away with it, too.
Yeah, I know. He really...
If you weren't giving your notice.
But he was trying to be a consummate professional and putting in his notice and staying, giving them some time to find a replacement.
In case it didn't work out,
Yeah. We then go back to our main storyline. Mr. Damon is being released. Grissom is there to give him a ride? Question mark. I thought this was very weird and uncomfortable.
Very improper, probably, given the fact that, like, he could still be charged.
Yes, and then it looks like Grissom is, like, in his pocket by, like, being there to pick him up directly.
Yeah, although all that really does is cast more reasonable doubt on the situation, so it'd probably make him harder to convict, but still. But
his quote-unquote sister is there as well, and this is where we learn that it is not his sister. Mr. Damon has lied again, and he didn't think that Grissom would have helped him if he knew that he was leaving his wife for another woman, this woman, Rachel.
Turns out a firefighter isn't the only thing he's bad at. A husband and a father he's also questionable at.
I mean... father, I guess I would take father.
Well, if you didn't leave your wife to go sleep with this lady that
I guess so. Yeah, well, I guess that leads...
But you're right.
To be fair, that does lead into, like, the final quotes of the episode where Mr. Damon says, like, he thought he was going to feel free. He doesn't feel free. And Grissom says, you feel responsible.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, if he hadn't left that night, what might have happened had he not left his wife and his son that night? And for whatever reason, right? Like, who cares what your reason was? Had you not left that night, whether it was for Rachel, whether it was for whatever else, maybe your wife and your son would still be here.
Kudos to Rachel, though. I mean, she's really put up with a lot. She's really stuck by him in this situation.
She really has stuck by him.
So, I mean, he was going to leave his wife for her, so he's certainly shown an act or two of faith. So
yeah, but I'll just say, as someone in the dating world, if someone is willing to cheat on their partner for you, they are willing to cheat on you for somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Just keep that in mind. You can think that you're like the special one, but if they're willing to cheat on someone for you, it might not take that much for them down the road for them to cheat on you with somebody else.
In the data world, we call that a pattern.
It's a pattern. You're not special. I mean, you are special. Everybody's special. But in this sense, don't...
Except for you. You know who you are.
You know who you are. You know. You don't need us to tell you. You know deep down inside. All right. Nick, what did you think about this episode?
I liked what I called the B plot a lot more than I liked the A plot. I actually thought the runner thing, that's a great storyline. It's Vegas-y. They did a good job keeping mixed up. The A plot, I was fine with the story. At the end, I was kind of like, I felt like they cheated. You know what I mean? Also, They gave me no chance to predict a kerosene lamp was thrown at him.
No, they give you no chance for that whatsoever.
I didn't think the guy left to go get ice cream from like the first time he delivered that line.
Yep.
Which actually might be a good acting. His character, I kind of was like, I never really liked his character, but I sort of chalked that up to being a very realistic human character. Like all those flaws of you should just tell people what happened are very human flaws.
Yes.
Where you won't tell people when you know you should.
Yep.
Because of some other hubris or pride fault that you have. So I kind of liked all that. And then at the end, it's like, did she throw it? Oh, she threw a vase. Oh, you're right. It was a kerosene lamp.
Yeah. The leading questions to
They should have stuck with the space heater idea, but
This is not my least favorite episode, but I will say I had a twinge of the plane episode where I was like, when I realized that this was our next episode, I was like, I don't particularly like this one. Yeah. I dislike the plane one a lot more than I dislike this one, but I really don't like this one. And I think similar to you, storyline B, totally fine. Like nothing extraordinary, but like totally fine storyline B. I just think that storyline A, I think you're right that we're Mr. Damon is supposed to be a very flawed human being, and maybe there's an artistic point there, right? That there is ambiguity, right? Because at the end he's like, oh, you learn that he's been cheating on his wife, and, and I think there's supposed to be some level of ambiguity where you're like, wait, did he kill his wife? No, I guess the evidence says he didn't, but I think they're kind of leaving you with a little bit of like, but maybe he did, right? Like he's not the greatest guy in the world. It's not clear cut like, oh, he was a really good guy, and by unforeseen circumstances his wife and son died. It is like he's a flawed human being, and could he have killed his wife? Yeah, maybe. Like, people have killed their spouse to be with somebody else. Like that has been a very repeated theme throughout history. But also maybe he just
to leave her for the same reasons, right?
Yes, but maybe he was willing to just leave his wife, and then this happened totally separately from that. So it's fine. It's an okay episode. It's not my favorite episode. It's meh.
It's another example very similar to the airplane episode where it's like a great idea on paper.
Yeah, not the best executed.
Another CSI, the guy that you're in opposition to, he thought it was X, Y, and Z, and reasonably. Like, great, there's a lot of evidence for his conclusion. Yep. But you're not that guy. You're the evidence guy, and you see it through regardless of whether... There are some lines in there where it's like, I'll tell you what the evidence says or something, right? Right. He's like, Mr. Grissom, are you going to help me? He's like...
And he goes, I might help you or hurt you. I don't know. It's just where the evidence goes.
Yeah. And I was... And like, that would have been a great line if I felt like there was more to it. And he never really find the evidence either. He just had to like ask questions. Yes. And get this guy to remember that oil lamp was thrown at him.
Led him to the answers that he wanted to find.
So it's like I feel like they could have written that a better episode.
I agree.
And that will always sort of weigh down. It's like gymnastics, right? I have no idea what any of these amazingly talented people are doing other than to say that I can't do it. But I know that if they don't stick the landing, they aren't going to get the gold medal.
Right. You're like, I know that much. I know that much if I know nothing else. So we're saying this episode didn't stick the landing. We'll see. Our next episode that we're going to review is season 1, episode 13, Boom. And in the meantime, feel free to find us on Facebook, Who Are You, a CSI podcast. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Who Are You, CSI pod. You can also email us at whoareyoucsipod@gmail.com, and feel free to tell a friend, hashtag whoareyoucsipod. We're monitoring that. We'd love to hear from you guys. And otherwise, we will see you next week.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.